Former Chicago Police Superintendent Garry McCarthy getting it done for the good people of Willow Springs now. And I have to say, first off, because, I'm doing Christmas cards by phone. It's a time saver. Merry Christmas to you and your family and everybody there in Willow Springs.
Thank you, Steve. You too. Good to be back.
Well, it's nice to have you back. You're welcome here anytime. And we thank you for the work you've always done for the city and for keeping an eye on us. All right, state of the city going forward into 2024. If I told you to put on your Swami hat here and give us a little prediction, where's crime headed? Up, down, or stable?
No, it's going to go up. It's going to go up. I mean, I'm generally an optimist.
Yeah, you are.
Probably to a fault. But I see no change in anything that's going to happen as far as crime goes. One of the things that people don't realize, obviously we keep track of the murder rate publicly because people want to know that. But the most important thing, as far as street-level crime goes, are robberies. And every day you turn on the TV, and there's a series of robberies overnight with a crew that just goes on a tear because it's lawlessness. They know they're not going to get prosecuted. If they do, actually get arrested. So that is the barometer of what's happening with crime, street-level robberies. And just pay attention a little bit, and you'll see it every single day in the news. And it's happening all over the city. There was a time when if something happened on Michigan Avenue, there was hell to pay. Certainly when I was a superintendent, a couple of times there were a couple of incidents that happened downtown. And I mean, there was enormous pressure to, A, solve the crimes, and B, make sure it doesn't happen again. And at this point, it's almost like, Charlie Brown's mother. We don't even notice it anymore because it's happening so frequently, whether it's in Millennial Park or Michigan Avenue or Lincoln Park.
When we talk about carjackings and we talk about murders and we talk about violence in between, those are all incredibly serious, obviously, and no, they're not being prosecuted. But foundationally, for a civil society, you can't take stuff that's not yours. How was shoplifting handled when you ran the Chicago Police Department as opposed to how it's handled now? And I'm not putting a hammer on the police here because the police can only do what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, you know what? Shoplifting was not looked at as a big deal. But the retail theft and the crews that are going out there, there's violence involved in that. Those become robberies. Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's something that drives me absolutely nuts. And unfortunately, people don't understand the difference between a burglary and a robbery. The smash and grabs, the driving the cars through the windows, those are burglaries. They're being referred to as robberies, and I think that's just confusing. Robbery is a violent crime. Mm-hmm. Burglary is a property crime. So,
well, it's an important distinction.
Yeah, but they weren't really prosecuted before, and now it's acting in concert, and that should be raising the level of it. So, and I know that they're not being prosecuted. People are just being told, don't even bother arresting them. So there's a serious lack of manpower in CPD. Not sure about how the leadership's going to turn out, but by the same token, they've lowered the standards. There's active gang members actually being hired in some cases, I've learned. And I'm just not optimistic about it. And it's not just Chicago, don't get me wrong. This is a nationwide thing with the woke movement. Look at every big city across the country. I mean, New York, we've given back everything that we gained when, I was there in the 90s and early 2000s. And I'm not saying I get credit for that. I'm just talking about where the city is. We had a plan. We had leadership. We executed it. People were being prosecuted. And guess what? It worked. And here we are. I don't know. We just have moved back so many squares. It's unbelievable.
True story. Jane.
So a buddy of ours, George Bliss, who's very in tune with all the live police radio feeds, he listens to them, kind of sends us the links so we can hear them as well.
He's a great reporter.
Yeah, and a lot of the feeds are very difficult to hear. Concern is that could cause more problems than it is doing good. Do you know anything about that? Is it a system-wide sort of radio feed that's not working? Can it use some improvements? How does that obviously is going to affect the police department?
Yeah, that is a big deal. They should have already gone to digital, which clears all of that stuff up. So I'm not sure where they are technology-wise. They've always been in a pretty good place. They were a little bit ahead of the curve when I got here as far as cameras go and things like that. But, transmissions and radio communications is the most important thing. When we lost it on 9/11, I actually took my Nextel and went back out to the World Trade Center and was reporting back. That's how bad communications were. But
right.
that is a crisis right there. So, here's what I got to point out. And this story sticks with me. There's a couple of stories that stick with me. The Adam Toledo shooting, tragedy. 13-year-old kid shot and killed by a police officer. The response to that event was no more foot pursuits. It wasn't trying to keep a 13-year-old off the street at 2 o'clock in the morning from carrying a gun from a gangbanger. It wasn't that response. We're taking the wrong medicine for what ails us. And then you look at the Dakota Early shooting. That's the young man who was a chef who lost his leg in a shooting up in Lincoln Park when he was coming home. Police officers actually had that car on the museum campus, went to pull it over, and the car took off, and they did not pursue it. They let it go. And there were 3 robberies after it. And they said, we're just going into the house to do an eluding report. Now, the policies need to be corrected. Actually, I heard that there are people, civilian appointees within the structure of the police department, whether it was COPA or someplace else, are actually talking about the fact that the pursuit policy has to be a little less stringent. And granted, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to pursue people. But you have to take all the facts into account. And when it's 11 o'clock on the museum campus, you can pursue somebody. There's not a lot of people walking around. It's not like it's the middle of the afternoon on Michigan Avenue.
Well, but part of the problem is, and you and I have talked about this on and off the air, you've got cops now who used to go to work and couldn't think about the fact that they might not come home or they might get hurt in an accident of some kind. They had to go out and do the job. And trust their training and their instincts. You have cops who go and not only do they have to question what they're doing the job for the people in D.C. and the people here who make the rules, who have never walked a beat, never stood a post, never risked anything in their life, with the notion that if they do the job they've been trained to do, they could actually be arrested or prosecuted in process. You can't fix it until that gets fixed. And you can't fix it until we get a state's attorney who actually wants to put bad guys in jail.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's why there are officers from Chicago with 10 years on who are coming out and applying to work in Willow Springs.
Right.
I mean, it's such a sad state of affairs. I mean, when I became a police officer, I didn't want to retire. The only reason I left the NYPD was for another bigger opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
And these men and women are just jumping ship and walking away from their pensions.
Yeah, we talk about the fact that there are all these vacancies. We don't talk about how many folks are leaving and the fact that the recruiters are not able to get people in to replace them. And if they are, they're recruiting folks who really aren't ready for prime time. It's a scary message from you, but it's an important message to hear, and it's why we just don't go whatever Tony Preckwinkle wants when it comes to the state's attorney replacement for Kim Foxx, who is leaving. Much more on that to come, and much more with Garry McCarthy in the days ahead. In the meantime, I hope you have a great Christmas.
Thank you. You too, guys. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Let's put it that way.
Appreciate you being on.
Merry Christmas, Garry.